Hello, welcome to Manibil. This is the follow-up to my video on the trolley problem, and I want to add a few. I've been doing some more thinking. I want to add a few comments to what I said last time or in the last video, and I was just thinking, okay, how do you apply? I think the train of thought that I went through was, okay, how do you sort of apply Hume's is-ought to this? Is it a violation of Hume's is-ought gap? And yes and no, no and yes, maybe. Because if you believe that this is the scenario in the trolley problem, and please go back and listen to my video you can read the problem here, or you can get my understanding of it in my prior video, right? So please go there. But that I would say this isn't a moral situation. If I'm planted in that scenario, it's not a moral situation for me. There are other actors in a bigger picture of this who are the moral responsible, right? But you are being confined into this small space and you're told, make a decision, right? But if you believe it's a moral situation, or you are convinced of it in the sophist manner, which the trolley problem is, then you are the one who actually have to decide what to do, right? And then you would apply a moral principle. Then you are the one making Hume's leap, right? You are the one potentially violating the gap, but you're basing the judgment on what you have been told, right? You are not sort of, strolling along and all of a sudden, my God, there's a trolley. My God, there are people, right? No, everything else have been, removed from the picture. There's only this trolley, there's only these people, there's only you, and there's only a switch, right? Make a decision. And you have also been told it's an ethical option. What is the more ethical option? Which is, they are both ethical, right? Or what is the right thing to do? So it's a controlled scenario where somebody wants a decision to be made, the divine intervention in the problem, right? Then says, there's a problem over here, and then they place you in it and say, you have to decide, and you can only do this or that, right? It's very manipulative, right? So you are the one being handed the decision. The guard, the trolley guard is just sitting there saying, hey, you over there, you make the decision, right? You figure out whether or not it's Hume's is-ought gap. So it's sort of hidden, it's handed over, and you are all of a sudden putting in the hot seat and expected to make a qualified decision out of the blue, right? You're just an innocent passerby, bystander, right? And somebody says, hey, you over there, this is the scenario, make a decision, right? It's fucking abusive, right? And it's possibly the one who's creating all the shit that's going on, who says, hey, I'm not responsible for the shit I made, right? Go over there and make a decision, you peasant, right? It's sort of, there was sort of a spider's web here. Maybe I should start cleaning, right? There's a big fucking spider up in the roof. Okay, so spiders are not dirty. So it's this. If you ever seen a video, I saw actually a video yesterday it was a scenario that was filmed from two different locations, right? And what you saw in the first one was somebody looking like a punk in the early 80s or something like that, right? And then the punk was running and the camera was panning, and then you saw it turned from the front, and then you saw it kept running, and then you saw the guy from the back, and then he sort of yelled at some guy in a bowler hat, probably in the UK, right? And the guy in the ball had turned around and put off his map in order to sort of defend himself, right? But then you saw, and then it cut, right? But then you saw another scenario the same scenario from another angle, where you saw that this guy who was sort of slowly walking on the pavement, there was something hanging in a wire and some, construction utensils, whatever shit on a piece of, on a what's it called, a plate, sort of a door, right? That was lowered down, and it was sort of starting to tilt, and he would probably be hit by all this, right? And this, when you see the guy come running, and the guy defending himself, the other guy with his briefcase, then the punk, so-called punk, pushes him in towards the walls, and then this shit comes down. It tilts over, and the shit falls down, right? I don't know if it's sort of it's real or it's sort of staged scenario, and that doesn't really matter, because if you only saw one version, you would have maybe some interpretation. If you saw the other version, you would have another interpretation. So it depends on how you look and what is removed from the picture in order for you to make a good decision, right? And you also need a, what's it called? I have the Danish word. You have to have the backstory of what is going on. In order to understand, you can't just, dump people into a scenario and tell them, fix this shit, right? So it's it's purely a trick to put you on the spot, and a spot where you don't really want to be, because obviously the way you're told it, you cannot get out of doing something. If you don't do something, the scenario is worse if you do something, but it's still bad, right? Somebody is still getting killed. You're put on the spot, and you are tricked into saying, aha, this is easy. I'll just flip the switch, and then only one get killed, and everybody, yay, you're the savior, right? It's a trick to engage you, as I said in the earlier video. And then when you get the other scenario with the fat man, you're more like, I'm not so sure now, right? I'm not so sure. I don't want to be the one pushing innocent people onto tracks in order to save somebody else, right? So now it's like there's a higher responsibility. You didn't plant the one guy on the side track of the trolley, right? But the innocent passerby that you decide to use as your tool in order to fix the world is something completely different, right? All of a sudden, it's like now with the points that you're making very serious decisions now. In the other one, you're just sort of switching between worse and slightly less worse, right? But at the end of the day, the point is the trolley god that makes this intervention and places you there has decided for you that it is a moral situation in some way, right? By saying which is the more ethical option, implying that they are both unethical. So if they are both unethical, you are not responsible, because you cannot fix a problem that is in the history was created before you arrived at the scene, right? This is just an after effect. These are the symptoms of the problem, right? You can't fix symptoms. You can't fix the problem by adding, first aid bands to the symptoms, right? The problem is way before. The problem is a combination of how the hell did these people end up on the railroad tracks, right? And why does this trolley just, is in a runaway mode, right? These are the decisions that needs to be addressed morally, not whether or not you can fix putting on bandages or stop the accident or anything like that, right? What I would say is, if you can, it points to a very central aspect of my ethics, which is, if you do not have a potential choice where you can go in a neutral, you can switch to a scenario that is neutral, that is not more, that doesn't have the capability of being immoral. You cannot be put on trial, so to say, for your actions, because then it's a problem that if you cannot get away from it, if the scenario, if you're enclosed in a scenario that is inherently immoral, you cannot make morality out of it, right? You cannot make it moral. You have to be able to switch to a track where there aren't anybody getting, then you could say, even in that scenario, I wouldn't say it's a moral case, but at least you have the possibility to engage in a way that where you can stop the accident, right? But if the switch will activate the trolley, or it won't activate the trolley, right? Then you are the reason for at least the the effect or the force that will create death down the line, right? If somebody else did it, you can't stop that effect now. You can only trying to fend off the problem, so to say, right? So it's a trick. It's a trick. It's attempting to make you accept that somebody else fucked up, but you have the responsibility of fixing it, right? Somebody can tell you, go fix my problem, right? Don't buy into that. It's not your problem. It's not your morality. It's somebody. I'm not saying it's necessarily an unethical or that it doesn't have any morality, but you are not part of that morality. You cannot just create some shit somewhere and then bring in some third person from over there. Hey, come over here. I'm fixing you. I'm putting you here, and you have to fix the shit, right? That's not how it works, right? But except for one aspect, and that is government, right? Government actually produces people who are tied to railroad tracks, metaphorically, and it screws around with the free market so that trolleys all of a sudden start rolling, right? And then they say, somebody has to fix this, right? Somebody has to fix this. Oh, government needs to fix the problem in the market, right? So we need to have regulators, right? Need to have regulators, right? And then they're saying, hey, over you there, innocent person, right? You should be able to fix this moral problem. And then you say, oh, no, I'm not so sure, after the fat man scenario, right? I'm not so sure. Oh, please, Mr. Government, do it for me. Oh, I got rid of the responsibility. Now I can let government regulate all the levers, right? I can see that it's an interesting scenario because if you read it correctly, as I think I'm doing, right, you understand what is really going on, right? I have the same feeling of these kinds of psychological tests, or what do you call it, right? Like the Milgram experiment, where you think you are participating in a particular, you have given a description, this is what we're doing, this is the experiment, but you are actually the experiment, right? You're told a fake story of what is going on, right? And then you act, but it's how you act in the scenario, like in the Milgram experiment, that is the experiment, not what you have been told is the experiment, right? Like here, you are the one taking part in this Milgram experiment, and the one who's giving the the one who's probably, there might be a sufficiently ignorant, stupid people out there, right? Who don't even understand how manipulative this trolley problem is, right? But when when you understand this, you can see that the one giving the problem is reading how you respond to the problem rather than how you solve it, right? Because in the setup, you can't solve it, right? You alert into accepting that in a bad situation, you should take the lesser of two evils, right? And this is okay, that you can just bring in somebody like you, little peon, right? And put them in the situation and say, fix it, right? If you accept this scenario, you are part of the problem, right? You are part of the trolley problem and philosophical problems in general, right? That you are, it's also, it alludes to, in the olden days when you have, these mathematical or algebraic, whatever, fix this problem, right? Like if 10 men can dig a hole in 5 hours, how many holes can 50 men dig in 13 hours, something like that, right? Okay, so just calculate, fix, right? And it's the same approach here. Okay, scenario, problem, fix, right? But it's all the other shit going around behind this scenario that is the real problem, right? Okay. See you in the next one.